Prelude to Ulysses. This is a new one again. Trying to do this, deleted the other one I did on accident of this same thing I already did. Welcome to Alex Reed's Ancient Evenings by Norman Mailer. Well, go ahead and take that bookmark the fuck out of there. To my daughters, my sons, and to Norris. I believe in the practice and philosophy of what we have agreed to call magic, and what I must call the evocation of spirits, though I do not know what they are. In the power of creating magical illusions and the visions of truth in the depths of the mind when the eyes are closed. And I believe that the borders of our mind are ever shifting, and that many minds can flow into one another, as it were, and create or reveal a single mind, a single energy, and that our memories are part of one great memory, the memory of nature herself. It's a quote by W.B. Yeats, Ideas of Good and Evil. I'm not going to read the contents. Part 1. We're doing this thing now. I bought that. This isn't a green screen. This is part 1 of the Book of One Dead Man. Actually, I ordered this. I found it. I'm not going to talk like I do on the other ones. No, I am, but differently. Crude thoughts and fierce voices are my state. I do not know who I am, nor what I was. I cannot hear a sound. Pain is near that will be like no pain felt before. Is this the fear that holds the universe? Is pain the fundament? All the rivers veins of pain. All the rivers, veins of pain. The oceans, my mind awash. Is this the fear? I have a thirst like the heat of earth on fire. Mountains writhe. I see waves of flame. Washes, flashes, waves of flame. Thirst is the rivers of the body. And the rivers burn but do not move. Flesh, is it flesh? Lies beneath some heated stone. Lava rises in burnt out fields. Where, in what cavern have such disruptions taken place? Volcanic lips give fire. Wells bubble. Bone lies like rubble upon the wound. Is one human? Or merely alive, like a blade of grass equal to all existence in the moment it is torn. Yes, if pain is fundament, then a blade of grass can know all there is. A burning number came before me. The flame showed an edge as unflickering as a knife. And I passed into that fiery sign. In fire, I began to stream through the clear and blazing existence to the number 2. Pain entered on a pulse. Each rest between each pang was not enough. Oh, the twisting of hope, the tearing of fiber. My organs had surely distorted, yes. And the shriek of bone when it cracked. Doors opened into blasts. Pain took abode in the most brilliant light. I was exposing to burning rock. Demonic, the heat of the sun and blood boiling in the veins. Would it ever be blood again? The current of the highest fires told me then, by the intensity itself, that I would not be destroyed. There had to be some existence on the other side. So I let go of my powers. As they charred in my heart, these dying powers might yet give life to other parts of me. For I could see a thread quivering in the darkness, a tendril alive in the smoked-up carbon of my meats, fine as the most exquisite nerve, and through each pain I looked for this filament. in every refinement of anguish, until pain itself took on such a radiance that I knew a revelation. The filament was not one thread, but two, wound around each other in immaculate delicacy. They twisted together in the most intolerant spasms, yet were quick to draw apart at the first relief, and with such subtlety of movement that I was certain I witnessed the life of my soul, seen at last, dancing like a dust tail above the flame. Then all was lost again. My bowels quaked with oceanic disruption, ready to jettison whole fats, sweetmeats and gravies of the old pleasure-soaked flesh. Frantic as a trader springing his leeks under torture, I would give up anything to ride lighter the next wave of odium. And in the darkness of waves of flesh smacking raw waters of sound, I labored. I could not bury myself in such sulphurs. It was not the fumes, but the terror of suffocation. Not death by fire, but the soil burying me. It was the clay. A vision came forward of clay sealing the nostrils and the mouth, my ears, and into the sockets of my eyes. I had lost all vision of the double filament. There was only myself in these buried caves and the hammering of my gut. Yet if I were to be buried in the murk of these screaming, scalding wastes, I had gained a vision with which to torment myself, for I comprehended the beauty of my soul just at the moment I could not reach its use. I would perish with such ideas, even as I gained them. A moment of peace arrived then. In this storm and tumult of the pipes, I knew the solemn desolation of the subsided center of the hurricane. And in that calm I saw with sorrow what I might now be wise without a life on which to work my wisdom. And in that calm I saw with my sorrow that I might now be wise without a life on which to work my wisdom. Okay. For I had a view of old dialogues. Just know everything now. Once I had lived like master and slave. Now both were lost to each new seizure. Oh, the lost dialogue that had never taken place between the bravest part of me and the rest. The coward had been between the bravest part of me and the rest. The coward had been the master. Something came apart in the long aisles of my pride and had a view into the fundament of pain. The view as beautiful as it was narrow, but the mills of vituperation were turning again, like a serpent whose insides have blown apart. I gave up, sued for peace, and gave birth to my bloody, clotting history of coiled and twisted eviscerate. Some totality of me wanted out of my belly and saw the burning figure of the two dissolve in flame. I would be no longer what I had been. My soul felt pained, humbled, furious at loss, and still arrogant as beauty itself, for the pain had ceased, and I was new. I had a body again. Woo! That was hard to read. So that's pretty neat. Sounds like he's being taken apart and has died and is coming back to life. Okay, should I read the other one? It's bigger than that one. It's the real one. All right, so this is actually part one. That was the preface. I might talk more. The darkness was deep, yet I had no doubt. I was in an underground chamber 10 paces in length by half in width, and I even knew just as quickly as a bat that the room was all but empty. Stone was the surface of the walls and the floor. Just knows that. As if I could see with my fingers, I had only to wave an arm to feel the size of the space beyond my reach. It was exactly so. It was exactly so remarkable as to hear voices by the hairs of one's nose. For that matter, I could smell the scent of stone. Say that an absence was in the air, some hollow that dealt within another hollow. Now I was aware of a granite coffer near to me, as aware, indeed, of its presence as if my body had walked within. It was huge enough to be my bed, but a step away, as if on guard, were some aged droppings on the floor, pellets from a small, fierce animal who had managed, like myself, to find its way here, and left its deposit and gone. For there was no skeleton to speak of the beast, just the scent of some old urine-cursed dung. But where was the passage by which the animal could have entered? I breathed in the horror that comes when the air is close with an animal's mean excrement that has its own message to give. Yet I could also recognize a pure bouquet of fresh night air that had chosen to enter this chamber. Had it come from a shaft in the rock used by the cat? The cat now, huh? Shaft? Okay, no. You're gonna do this. You're gonna actually read it. In the dark, between two blocks of stone, my fingers soon found a niche not much greater in width than a man's head. Still, by its fresh breath, it must lead outside. The air that arrived through the shaft was only a whisper, not strong enough to stir one hair on a feather, but it offered the cool of the desert when the sun had been down for much of the night. Toward that cool murmur I stretched, and to my surprise was able to follow my arm up the niche. It was a long shaft between great blocks of stone, and in places seemed no wider than my head, but it went in a straight line at a steep angle upward. A filthy trip. The dead shells of countless beetles cluttered my way. Ants went by my skin, and rats piped in high terror. Still, I climbed with no panic, only in surprise at the narrow dimensions of this passage. Surely I was not able to make my way through. It was hardly larger than the burrow of a snake. Yet I might as well have been without shoulders or hips. Cunning was in my touch, as if I were a snake. As if, like a snake, there was no fear of being caught in the passage ahead. It's probably pretty weird to be a snake. I was capable of becoming narrower, but that is no better than to say I traveled with my thoughts through the long, narrow shaft, my body sufficiently supple to obey a most peculiar sensation. I felt altogether alive. The whisper of the air before me had phosphorescence. Particles of light glowed in my nose and throat. I was more alive than I could ever remember, and yet felt no yoke of muscle and bone. It was as if I had been reduced to the size of a small boy. When I lay at last near the mouth of the passage, my view was of the sky at the end of a shaft, and moonlight slanted over the edge. As I rested, the moon passed full into view and anointed me. From orchards in the distance came a scent of date and fig trees, and the clear refreshment of the vines. The air on this night gave intimations to me of gardens where I once made love. I knew again the smell of rose and jasmine. Far below, by the river bank, the palms of the shore would be black in outline against the silver water of the river. So I came out at last from the end of the shaft, in that great hill of stone, and I stuck my head and shoulders into the open night. I pulled through my legs and gasped. Beneath the light of the moon was a long, white slope of stone, with the earth far below. But out there on the plateau of the desert, mute as a mountain of silver, there was at the end of my gaze was a pyramid. Beyond it, another, nearer to me. All but covered in sand was a stone lion with the head of a man. I was perched on the slope of the great pyramid. I had just been, it could be nowhere else, in the burial chamber of the pharaoh Khufu. Harsh as the sounds of a man's snore was the name of Khufu. He was gone 1,000 years and more, yet at the thought of having been in his tomb, my body was too weak to move. The sarcophagus of Khufu had been empty. His body had been found and robbed. I thought my heart would strike its last sound. My stomach had never felt so pure a slop of cowardice. Yet I was a man of valor, as I seem to remember, perhaps a soldier, renowned for something. So I could swear. All the same, I could not move a step. In shame, I shivered beneath the moon. There I was on the slope of our greatest pyramid, moonlight on my head and heart, the statue of the immense lion below, and the pyramids of the Khufu, Khafra, and the pharaoh Menkaura to the south. To the east, I saw the moon on the Nile. And far to the south, I even saw the last of the lights in the lamps of Memphis, where mistresses were waiting for me. Or were they waiting for another by now? I was so reduced as to think it did not matter. Had I ever had a thought like this before? I, whose first fear used to be that I was too ready to kill any man who looked at my woman. How exhausted I felt. Was this the price I paid for entering the tomb of Khufu? In gloom, I began to make my way down, sliding from crack to crack in the limestone, and I knew some foul change had taken place in me already. My memory, which had given every promise in the first glow of moonlight that it would return, was still a sludge. Now the air was heavy with the odor of mud. That was the aroma of these lands, mud and barley, sweat and husbandry. By noon tomorrow, the riverbank would be an oven of moldering reeds. Domestic animals would leave their gifts in the mud of the bank. Sheep in the mud of the bank. Sheep and pigs, goats, asses, oxen, dogs, and cats. Even the foul odor of the goose, a filthy bird. I thought of tombs and of friends in tombs. Like the plucking of a heavy string came a first intimation of sorrow. Fun so far. All right, so it seems like this soldier was trying to, or maybe an Indiana Jones type was trying to maybe steal some goods from old Khufu Cheops, and met his end within that chamber somehow. And somehow his spirit became intertwined with the spirit of someone who had been, what's it called when you get cut up? Egyptians cut you up. They cut out all your organs. They pull your brain out your nose. They put it in jars. They ferment your body. What is it called? Mummify. All right. Sounds like he has memories of being mummified. Sounds like he has mixed memories as well. Perhaps he found the sea of subconscious that holds the brains of everything, huh? The thoughts of everything. I don't know. Awesome so far. Love it.